CashFlow Diary Podcast, episode 374.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because from time to time, you've heard me tell you that where you start isn't necessarily where you stay. What do I mean by that? I mean, in your journey as an entrepreneur, as you're out there to build cash flow, and of course, you know, guys, that we're always talking about real estate, but there are many ways of building cash flow, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you understand that where you start isn't necessarily where you stay. You may one day decide that, you know what, I've done the single family house thing. I'm ready to do an iPhone app. Okay, great. And the experience will transfer. And we do our best to bring to you entrepreneurs who can talk about their experience. And more importantly, you can learn from so that you can take those best practices, go out there and make that happen. Well, today's guest is probably a really, okay, did I say really good example of exactly what I mean when I say where you start isn't necessarily where you stay? And he listens to his audience. He listens to the market to make sure that we as entrepreneurs get from him what is necessary. And it's a necessary skill that you must develop. So I'm hoping that you're ready to listen. Today I have with me none other than Kevin Bupp. He's a Florida-based real estate investor. Now, you may know him from one of his two, that's right, I said two podcasts in iTunes, Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow, and he also has one dedicated to mobile home parks. So you know that's going to be part of today's conversation as well. He calls himself a serial entrepreneur, but what's really interesting to think about is that he's done over $40 million worth of real estate transactions. Now, that's not in California dollars. That's in Florida dollars. That means it's a lot more deals than you probably can physically imagine right now. So with that being said, let's make sure that we take out our iPads. Let's make sure you take out your Apple pencils or make sure you take out some pieces of paper. And if you're on the treadmill, well, just hit that bookmark button because you're going to have lots of things you're going to want to refer back to as we listen and learn from Mr. Kevin Bupp. Kevin, you there?
Jay, I'm here. Thanks for bringing me on. I'm super excited to spend some time with you today.
I'm pretty excited myself because when I see someone who can't make up their mind, i.e. has done so many different things, it tells me I'm going to learn a lot from them as well. So, this being one of the things I like to do is I like to ask everybody the same question as we get started because it just sets the correct stage. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes, you know, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, etc. And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. Chief among them is that as entrepreneurs, occasionally I think of myself as flying around with a cape and tight and saving people from their problems. That's kind of like what, you know, superheroes do. But I also think that superheroes and entrepreneurs have another thing in common. Because if you think about it, all superheroes had a beginning. So Spider-Man, for example, there was a time long ago when he was just a college student and he needed some extra money. So he thought he'd take some photos. And then one day he gets bit by a spider and discovers that he's got something special to share, right? And then he goes out there. He has to make this choice. Ooh, I got this thing. Do I use it for good or evil? And then he goes out into the world. So my question for you, sir, is as follows. Before the $40 million of real estate transactions, before the two podcasts, because one clearly wasn't enough, before your extent with apartment buildings, single family homes, office buildings, raw land, condos, and mobile home parks, before all of these things, what we want to know is, who is Kevin Bupp?
You might have to help me with that, Jay, because I'm trying to relate it to a superhero of who I was before all this. But so I got started when I was 19. And so prior to that was high school, but I was a terrible student. I mean, I was literally like a C and D student, really, really bad in high school and had no direction in life. So which superhero would that be? You got to help me out with this. I don't know who that would be.
That's a good question. But I was
a lost and wandering superhero in the middle of the woods, not knowing where to go with my life. I was dead serious. So whoever that superhero is, that's who I was.
Well, I think you just made somebody feel normal. So this is good. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So I literally was that. I was really bad, barely graduated high school. And this isn't some real estate guru story here. Like, oh my God, I had to walk 10 miles, to school in the snow, this, that, and the other. I mean, it really was both bad in school. I hated school. I mean, I was always suspended, detention. It was mostly for just being late or skipping school. And I was just, I graduated high school, went to community college because I thought that was the only logical thing to do since I didn't really still know what to do with my life, and was tending bar part-time, going to school, just having fun, really more than anything else. Again, no direction. I just got really lucky. I was dating a girl, and her mom had started dating a guy that I got to meet a couple times, and he was like 20 years my senior. And I used to see him over at her house during the day when adults should be at work, like he was like 20 years older than me. So I was like, what are you doing here? Why are you stopping by during the day? Shouldn't you be at work? And I just befriended him one day, long story short, and found out he was a real estate investor. And I didn't even know what that meant. I mean, I knew he owned property, but I had never read a book on the topic, didn't know anything about financing, didn't know about rental properties, being a landlord. And we kind of befriended one another over a period of a couple months. And he actually invited me down to a 3-day boot camp in Philadelphia. I'm from Pennsylvania originally, and it was a Ron LeGrand boot camp. I think that guy's still around teaching. I'm pretty sure he is. Oh my gosh, he's a goofy guy. But anyway, I went to this conference with him. He had an extra ticket. I went to this conference with him. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I tried to I think I went to the library and got some books out. This is before Amazon time, and tried to read about the topic of what does it mean to be a real estate investor. Went to this boot camp, met a lot of people there that I felt like I was at least equally as smart as, if not smarter. So if they could do it, then I could do it. And so I felt like I actually had some kind of purpose at that point in my life. I was like, man, someone's literally trying to hand me something, or at least willing to show me the way a little bit. I looked up to him. He was a very successful, smart guy, well dressed, drove nice cars, this, that, and the other. And I literally went underneath his wing for like a year, and I got into real estate. I mean, I literally started flipping houses. Well, not right away, but I followed him around for about a year, and then started flipping single family homes, buying really rundown junk in the middle of downtown Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is still a rough area today, and it was even rougher back then. Cut my teeth on some really low income type properties, and that's literally what I have done my entire adult life. I've had a few other side shoots of businesses that I've ventured into, but never really ventured away from real estate, just kind of additional businesses that I've started in addition to real estate. But real estate has really been my core. It's always been what's brought money in the door, put food on my table, fed my family, and really it's what I consider myself today. I consider myself an entrepreneur, but I am first and foremost a real estate investor.
Got it. Okay, makes lots of sense. I just want to make sure that I heard this correctly. So you're saying the way to get into real estate investing is to date a girl and hope that her mom is dating a real estate investor. That's what I heard. Is that correct?
That's it, man. So I got lucky. It's funny. I didn't realize how lucky I wasn't, because now I teach people, you got to go find someone that you can add value to their life. You got to find a mentor or a coach, but you can't just go out seeking somebody saying, please be my mentor, please be my coach, and begging them. You got to figure out how to bring value to them. And honestly, maybe he was just looking for a friend. I'm not sure what he saw. Maybe he just saw a misdirected 19-year-old that, to me, I was like, whatever, I'm having fun. And to him, he's like, oh my God, in 10 years, this guy's going to be miserable if he doesn't do something with his life. Maybe that's what he saw. And he wanted to, to help me, avoid this confrontation I might have in a midlife crisis after I hadn't done anything productive. But either way, I got lucky, because he literally, he appeared and he took me underneath his wing without me even having to ask. I mean, I did, after we went to the boot camp, I kind of just said, hey, I'm willing to do whatever. But he got me to that point, I mean, without me even asking for it, which is pretty cool. So I'm very, very grateful for that. His name is David. I'm very grateful for David coming into my life.
Yeah, I can get that, because and he may have been looking for a friend, because this thing. Well, let's talk about it for a second. There's a time and period. I know for myself, it was a few years ago, but I was down to, I only had 117 houses, and I was during the day bored, I got nobody to play with, so all I did was learn photography. And it got to the point and I kid you not, Kevin, this is what I did. I wanted to learn photography so well so that I could get hired by the local newspaper because they would say that I was good enough. And then once I did that, I got bored and I was like, I'm done with that. But that's literally what I did because I was bored and I didn't have anything to do. But there is an element to being an investor or business owner that feels solitary. How do you deal with that?
I can't say I deal with it too well, and so that's why I've always had partners in my businesses. I've never been a solo investor. I mean, now I own property by myself, or my wife and I now, we own property that are just ours. But majority of the stuff that we do, we have partners on, and not just passive partners. We do raise capital from passive investors, but I have a team, and even back when I was investing in single family homes, I always tried to find a way to accelerate my growth and try to find others that were doing what I was doing, but maybe a little bit better at it. But that we could team up, and I always feel like there's power in numbers. Like you can definitely accomplish more as a team than you can as an individual, and so I have more fun doing it with other people, and so even today, I've got two primary partners in my business, and I just enjoy actually, being able to go into an office and actually having others to chat with, you know what I mean? Like talk strategy, talk deals, because it gets a little lonely.
Yeah, I am aware. I'm totally aware. That's why it's part of the reason I do the podcast, because then I can talk to people. No, I'm just kidding. Well, not really. Anyway, here's the point. Here's the question though, because you said something about that first seminar that you went to that I think a lot of people have experienced, which is why they catch the ooh, real estate is awesome bug, is they go into the room and then they realize these people aren't extraordinarily intelligent or any more so than myself. And I often say that real estate's very accessible to everybody, even me. So tell us a little bit about that experience where you're saying, I gotta be just as smart as them. And why do you think we think it has to do with the level of intelligence to be able to actually execute real estate?
Yeah, I don't know, Jay. I mean, I tell you, here's my experience of being at that boot camp. I was sitting next to the first day. We changed seats every day, but there was a lady named Ruth, and I can't remember her husband's name. They were sitting next to us. I believe it was the first or second day. I can't remember which day, but he was a grocery store manager, like for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, like career grocery store manager, probably made 60, 70 grand a year. And she was a stay-at-home mom, which, I mean, it didn't really faze me at that point. But thinking back, I'm like, oh, my God, it means he made 60 or 70 grand a year. She was a stay-at-home mom. They had multiple kids. I know how expensive kids are. That's crazy in itself that they would even be able to live that way. And yet they had done, I'd never verified the facts, but they told me they had flipped 4 properties that year already, fix and flip 4 properties that year, and had like $70,000 in profits that they put in their pocket. And it just blew my mind. Basically the same amount of money in 4 flips that he had made, or that he was about to make that entire year's salary. And we talked to him a lot in between breaks, this and that. And I mean, they're sat next to us for 8 hours. And so I got to know their personality, and I looked at them, I said, man, there's definitely nothing that they have that I don't have. And I think that was just really the light bulb came on in my head. And I'm like, gosh, every single person in this room, whether, they're doing 1 deal or 10 deals or 100 deals, they probably started right where Ruth was, or her husband. And so that was really a changing point. I bet you if I hadn't met Ruth and them that day and really talked to them about what they were doing and kind of associated myself with them, thinking like, well, they're no smarter than I am, maybe I wouldn't have got as much out of that conference. But I really think a lot of people, like you had mentioned, people that are getting into this business, they always think that there's plenty smarter people in the room, and like they're not good enough. They don't know enough to like get into this business or to make money in this business. And that is the farthest from the truth. I know more of it now than I did back then, but I can tell you, like, that conversation with Ruth really opened my eyes and just told me that, God, if they're doing it and he's a grocery store manager, then I can do it.
No offense to any grocery store managers listening.
No offense. Well, actually, here, I'm remembering other parts of the story now that I think back. He worked his way up. He had worked in that grocery store since he was like 20 years old as like a bagger. And so he had worked his way up through the ranks to become the manager of the grocery store. So he had been there. He had been a manager for like 15 or 20 years, but he had been in that grocery store for a long time. So he was very much a normal guy, didn't have a college degree, just normal Joe that kind of just worked hard and figured it out. So, that was just that was a light bulb time for me.
Yeah. And I think all of us have those moments where we go, wait a minute, I'm not that stupid. I can do this. We realize something is off. And, there's more for us out there if we would just have some direction, or you called it purpose. I'm curious to understand what purpose did you find at a real estate seminar?
What purpose?
Yeah.
I think I was just at a point in my life, Jay, that I needed something to grab onto. Like I knew that being a bartender, I mean, it was kind of embarrassing, and it was fun, but like also I had a lot of friends that were like, they went away to school, went to university. I'd see them when they came home. Like I was at this community college, like that in itself was kind of
I see.
It was somewhat embarrassing for me. And so I was like, man, I got all these like smart friends that are going away. And I didn't think of myself as not being smart. I just thought of myself as like, I don't know what the heck I want to do with my life. And so something was presented to me that I knew that based on the couple of conversations I had at this conference that I could easily make. In my mind initially, it was kind of like, I can easily make $60,000 a year doing this. And like, that's what my buddy's getting out of college after 4 years from, University of Penn State or something like that. That's what they're going to be making. And I have the ability to make it like now. So like for some reason, that was the purpose to me of like to prove to others, like I don't have to go away to university. I can literally be a bartender and I could go to, community college and I can do this. So that was my initial purpose, is to make money and to like kind of prove to myself, like, even though I got C's and D's in high school, that doesn't mean anything. Like, because I feel like a passion for this. I want to learn how to do this, and I think I can, and I think I have the ability to. So that was really my initial purpose, was just the money. Obviously, it's changed over the years. I've got kids now. I'm married. I do a lot of charitable work. So my purpose has definitely evolved. But back then, it was really just about money and kind of prove myself to others.
Yeah, no, I get that. And kids are indeed expensive. So, it's 2 houses per child. I totally understand. I got that. Now, what you brought up something, though, that I've thought about in the past, and I've definitely even encountered, or at least in the marketplace, where there'll be times when I'll run into individuals who we'll say they went through the, college and then the post grad and the doctorate and all these things. And, they have what they have. And then here I am, college dropout, exact opposite of everything. And it feels like they're going, how did you get here? And here could be some, exclusive place, or maybe a nice restaurant, or something that doesn't seem like I was supposed to be able to be there. My question to you is, have you ever caught up with any of those college friends of yours post? And have you encountered any situations where someone said to you, or it seemed as though, like, how did you beat the system? I had to go to college and do all these things, and you quote unquote got lucky in real estate.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't stay in contact with a lot of people I went to high school with, but there's definitely a few that I still associate with here and there if I go back home to visit, where my family is from in Pennsylvania. But, I think the more alarming factor to a lot of these people I went to school with, I really was a screw up in high school. I mean, I got suspended so often for just like not showing up or being late all the time. I was just a really poor student, and I went because I was forced to go. If I didn't have parents that actually like kicked me in the butt every once in a while, then I probably would have dropped out. I really would have. So I think the people that I stay in contact with are just more amazed. They're not saying, well, necessarily, how'd you do this, Kevin? They're just like, I can't believe you even did it. Like, I mean, what happened to the Kevin that I knew back when, 10th grade, when you were skipping school?
Like, you're still alive? What?
Drinking beer and you're like 16 years old. Like, what happened to that guy? But, awesome. It's funny because social media now allows you to, I'm very, I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but I've got this podcast. And so the podcast goes out on Facebook, and I'm a member of like my senior or whatever my graduating class was in high school. They have a Facebook page for that, and I'm a member of it. And so a lot of those people on there that I literally don't even talk with, but they're in my graduating class. They see me. And one of my teachers, was funny. It was an art teacher I had. She knew I was a screw up, but I think she felt bad for me. She always like let me come to her class and kind of hang out, like during like one of my, what do they call? What were those classes called where you could like do your homework and stuff? What were they called? Like your
homeroom?
No.
I don't know.
Like you'd have like a period during the day where you could literally, it's 40 minutes of just kind of like your own time. But anyway, not recess, but I would go hang out with her.
I was thinking like detention. I mean, I don't know.
No, maybe that for me. Yeah, for me. But she would let me go hang out, and like she never said it, but I could just tell like she knew like, oh man, I feel bad for this Kevin guy. He's not going to really do anything with his life. And she actually reached out to me like a year and a half ago on Facebook and wrote me this long, elaborate message saying like, I mean, I don't know how to put this other than just putting it candidly to you, but like I really was really worried for you in high school, and I thought you were a great guy, and just wondering what you're going to do with your life. And now I see like all the things you're doing, these, you give back a lot, you're involved in a lot of charities, and you seem like you're really successful, this, that, and the other. And she's like, of any of the people that you were in your graduating class, I never would have picked you to be the person that we're at this point now. And so, my message back to her was just like, really, it just came down to like hard grit and perseverance. I think that's all it came down to, and actually having something that I felt like I could actually attain, which was real estate. When it was presented to me, I thought that it was something that I could grab a hold of and I could really take and run with it. And up until that point, I never had anything in my life like schoolwork and all that. I didn't have an interest in learning. I'm different today. Like I love learning. Right. I love learning about everything and anything. Back then, I could care less.
Well, you're hitting on something that I think our education system totally missed. Actually, our schooling system, because we don't really have an education system, is that it doesn't tell us why we need to know anything. I mean, now what you're saying the same things that I feel too. I mean, history by far the worst subject for me back then. But I actually care now, in a completely different way than I ever did, because it's like, it matters. And I know for others, it could be math, and we don't realize that math and money are the same. There are so many of these things that tend to have purpose later. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. It's funny because now with what I was about to say is with podcast. So now we can go back and learn, Jay. Like there's the podcast, probably the most popular podcast out there. It's like things you missed in history class or something like that. I mean, literally, it's like history lessons in there. I love that show.
Right. And, it makes no sense. It's like, a biography. Let's learn. I mean, it is the craziest thing ever. Okay, so talk to us about what we like to call that superhero moment. It's that moment where you go, this is something I have. Like you realize, I've got a special ability here, and I'm going to go offer it to other people. What was that awakening, if you will, like, and in some of those first that transition period? What was that like?
You mean when I started? Help me clarify what you're asking for.
Sure.
Jay. So, like,
you said for a while that you were working under Dave's wing, etc., and then at some point there comes this point where you go, "I'm going to do this for me on my own and do this thing," and you have to develop a certain level of understanding that you have that inside of you, and then more importantly, the courage to actually go and do it. And what I'm asking is, what was that like, and where did that courage come from?
Yeah, the courage is actually forced. He made me do the deal on my own. So the very first deal I did, he wouldn't partner with me on. He did introduce me to like a hard money lender that he had worked with, or not, it wasn't really hard money. It was a private lender, but terms were a little bit better than hard money. So he made me do it on my own. So it was all my own money. I had saved up, about $10,000 bartending. And, so like he forced me to do my own deal. Like now he was there to, give me resources and kind of coach me along the way to make sure I didn't make, any mistakes that were unnecessary. But he definitely didn't sign on that note with me. He didn't go in, he didn't partner with me. He didn't put any money into the deal. So I was forced to, because I really wanted him. I tried many times to talk him into partnering with me. I was like, come on, let's make some money together. He's like, no, I'm making my own money. Your turn now.
Exactly. I like this Dave guy, because I get that question all the time. Like, no, I'm not doing it that way. So I'm so fired up for Dave right now. I kind of want to shake his hand. All right. So talk to me then what that first one was like. I mean, because there was a reason you wanted him to be right there with you, but now you're like, the buck stops at you. What does that feel like? If you can remember.
Yeah, it's funny. I go back. I want to smack him in the head and say, "Why'd you let me buy that property?" No, I made money on it, but it was in a little bit rougher of a part of town than now that I know better, or at least even shortly thereafter. Now, when I knew better that, the second deal and the third deal weren't as bad of an area or like a bad of a street. And so it was rough. I mean, just the clientele. I mean, I definitely cut my teeth on that first deal. I learned everything about like just, terrible tenants and, break-ins, people stealing stuff as you're going through the rehab. I mean, every lesson I could have possibly learned on like a lower end rehab, I learned on that deal. And I felt like he almost let me buy that so that I learned all these lessons very quickly. It's kind of funny. Like he helped me avoid a lot of mistakes, but he should have probably told me to like buy on the next street over, not on this particular street. But I did. I made money. I got out of it. I kept it for a short period. I ended up selling it. I was kind of in like a weird transitional stage. He always talked about cash flow, and but I didn't necessarily, I wasn't thinking about the rest of my life at that point in time. I mean, I was young. I was 20. So I bought my first property when I was 20. I was 19 when I met him. Cash flow to me, I wasn't thinking about like long-term cash flow. I was thinking about, man, I need to put some darn money in my pocket now. I want some chunks of cash. And so I kind of was like a confused kid at that point in time. I flipped that deal. I held on to it for a little bit. I flipped it with a tenant in it. The next deal I did, I kept for a little bit longer. I think about a year and a half until I moved to Florida. And a couple other deals I flipped. I wholesaled a couple. I mean, I just did whatever I needed to do to make money or whatever I thought was right at that point in time. And I didn't really hit my stride or really figure out what my business model until I actually moved to Florida. I moved to Florida in 2002. So I was 22, invested in Pennsylvania for, I guess just over 2 years before I actually packed up my bags and moved away and came down here. And this is where I've lived ever since. And I really hit my stride once I moved down here and figured out who I was, what kind of investor I was, what I was best at. And at that point, moving forward, I focused on cash flow. Like long-term holds, building long-term cash flow, it was best for me.
Got it. Okay, so let's have this conversation because this is the Cash Flow Diary. And I know there's a number of people thinking that same question right there. They're thinking in their head, but Kevin, I want to make, I know that in certain marketplaces it's prevalent. I want to make the 10,000, 5,000, 20,000, hits of cash. But why did you decide that cash flow is king? Now, you guys know I agree that, cash flow is king. And that's probably why you listen to the Cash Flow Diary. In fact, you might even want to get some more information. To do so, just go over to my site and pick up a copy of my book. It's a free PDF copy for you at CashFlowDiary.com/free book. Again, that's CashFlowDiary.com/free book. Last time, CashFlowDiary.com/free book. It's 10 steps to creating wealth in any economy, and you can begin your journey now. Just go over there, pick up a copy. Let's get back to Kevin.
Well, let me hit that little point that you just mentioned there. Is that you said people that want to make that $5,000, that $10,000 hit of cash. I want to make that too, but I want to make it each month, every month. Even if I'm not out seeking deals. So
yes,
we all have the same goals, but I just want it to reoccur each month in and out, even if I'm vacation with my family. I want to know that's coming in. I don't have to be out seeking out another deal if I don't want to. So, that's really was the attractive factor to me, is that I need to build something that could, I wasn't thinking about a family when I was 22. I knew I wanted kids. I knew I wanted to get married at some point in time. But at that point, I just wanted to make money. I wanted to build this real estate empire, and I wanted to have a lot of passive cash flow on a monthly basis because I enjoyed working, but I also enjoyed, I just moved to Florida. So I was in this new place. I wanted to explore. I wanted to go travel around all of Florida. I wanted to meet people and hang out and have fun. So I wanted to enjoy my life as well. And I didn't want to feel stuck with having to go chase that next deal. In my mind, if I could build a portfolio of 30 rental homes, that was my initial goal, build a portfolio of 30 single family homes that each cash flowed, $300 or $400 a month. That would be a really good start. I was I can achieve all I need to achieve.
Hold on 1 second. Because see, you just hit on something that I gotta know. Because we all had our initial goals. How long did you think it was going to take you to get 30? When you made that goal, how long did you
5 years? I don't know why. I said 5 years for some reason. It was just because it was in my mind that was a palatable number, and it seemed like it gave me enough of a buffer to screw around too if I needed to.
Right. Okay.
If I got lazy anytime in between, it gave me enough time to do that.
And how long did it actually take?
I think to hit that initial mark, probably about 2 years. But then after that, I really hit a stride and started buying like gangbusters. So the first few years were the toughest. After that, I bought way more in a much shorter period of time. But
I'm just check. I wanted to make sure that was the same thing that happened, because the same thing happened to me, and I had the same thing, and I was just like, that seems like 10 years. It's enough. That's what it's gonna take. I was so wrong. So
but it's good to set goals. You got to set them. I mean, even we invest in parks now, and I got into this 5 years ago, and it took me still almost a year and a half to buy my first park. And so in my mind, when I started, I'm like, well, I want $240,000. I want $20,000 a month of passive income from whatever parks. I didn't know what that number meant. I couldn't really figure out. There's so many variances there. So it wasn't necessarily a number of rentable lots. It was I just want to buy as many parks as I need, to meet this $20,000 a month passive income goal. Not just $20,000 a month when we have an incredible month, but a consistent $20,000 a month. And so I hit that in a much shorter period. I gave myself 5 years to do that as well. And I've only been in the business 5 years, and I hit it about a year and a half ago. So, much shorter, but you need that goal. You need that goal to really chase after. And I really think that I work well with carrots dangling in front of my face. And so that goal is always a carrot kind of dangling out there. And it's funny because there's lots of times where I just forgot about that. And like you get so focused, you're like, okay, like initially, like you have this goal, but then you just get busy. Like you just work, like you just make stuff happen. And then you realize like a year later, like, well, I haven't even thought about that goal in a while, but where am I at? Oh, wow.
It's a checklist now.
I kicked that goal's butt.
Totally. Well, and I wanted you to say that because a lot of people, I know they set this goal, they put that thing out there, and they freak out often when we're in a coaching session or I'm telling them, I was like, look, I see what you said. Are you open to that happening faster than what you said? Because sometimes when we say, oh, it's going to take me 10 years, we let it take us 10 years. And we let ourselves, the amount of work expands and the time you give it. Where if you said 2 years, you just don't know what you don't know. But yes, you're right. Putting that goal out there makes sense. So, you've done, we'll call it a myriad of different types of investing, from apartment buildings to single family homes, office, all the stuff, which begs the question, because you had to do the math, or there's a reason, there's something, and it's based on something. But why did you settle on mobile home parks?
Because they're the most beautiful real estate investment known to man.
No, they're not.
Aesthetically, aren't they?
No, they're not. So there's a reason.
I mean, the architecture of like the design of most mobile homes, it's so gorgeous. I love looking at them every day long. Now,
no one has said no one ever.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. 2008 hit me like a ton of bricks. Single family homes, I realized were part of my downfall. I lost a lot of real estate in 2008. We weren't over leveraged, not based on normal factors. We weren't. I mean, 65 cents on the dollar. I mean, we didn't over leverage our properties, but I'm in Southwest Florida, and there were parts down here that, suffered 15, 60% loss of value. And so in a matter of like 8 months, I was upside down. But not only that, but the rental market down here suffered as well in certain parts. And it suffered to the point of, me having positive cash flow to negative cash flow in our single family home portfolio. So it was a very challenging time for me. And I gave a lot of back to the bank. I gave a ton back to the bank, but I had apartments at the same time as well. My apartments fared through the storm. They actually weathered the storm. Unfortunately, I had to sell them at kind of the downtime on the market because I needed cash. It was a rough time. But so long story short, moving forward after the fall of 2008, I really took a hiatus from real estate for about 2.5 years. And I really didn't want to think anything about it. It was a really challenging time. I'd never been through something so tough in my life, and I didn't know any better. So I got into real estate in 1999, 2000 era, when things were literally, this whole uprun that we went through was just starting. And I didn't know that. I just said, gosh, everyone makes money in real estate. This is fun. This is not easy, but we're making hand over fist cash. And when it crashed down, it was a blow to the gut, and I didn't want to think about it. So I stepped away, put my head in the sand for a little bit, but then I pulled my head back out and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to focus on me. I love health. I love fitness. And so I started 2 other businesses that were very directly in line with like the lifestyle I lived in terms of like health and fitness. And so with the idea that I would work those businesses, make money, just get my mind off of real estate. I was still working with a lot of creditors, trying to, my credit was shot. I was doing everything I could to like clean up this mess that had, 2008 had created. And, but about 2 years into those businesses, I said, they're making decent money. They're fun, but now I need to get back into real estate. Like, I'm never going to build the wealth or, live the lifestyle that I want with these businesses. I guess I could, but I don't have as much of a passion for these businesses as I did real estate. And so I looked back at my business. I figured out what worked and what didn't work. And what I identified as not working were the single family homes. They were just inefficient to manage. I had 122 when the market crashed. They were, spread 3 to 5, actually about 5 counties apart from one another. And they were just inefficient to manage. And Florida is very expensive in terms of like taxes and insurance. And so they, taxes kept going up every year. We had some hurricanes down here. Insurance costs went up. And so when I bought them, a lot of them, the costs were a little bit lower, but over the years, the cost has increased and rents weren't necessarily keeping up with it. And so they weren't cash flowing as much as they should. On paper, it looked great because I had all this equity. I was worth a ton of money, but it went away really quickly when the market started going down. So anyway, I looked back at the business, realized that single family homes were not it. I was like, no way in heck am I going to do single family homes again, because I don't have time. I don't want to like spend another X number of years rebuilding this with single family, because I can do that and much more with multifamily. Mm-hmm. And so my goal going into the rebuilding stage of my business was multifamily. I'm going to buy apartments and I'm going to buy them in a big way. And this is going to be about my business, because this is what worked in my business. Although I just never, for some reason, like I had this big machine put in place for buying single family homes. And it kind of came like by default, we bought apartment buildings. Like they were just, broker brought this one. I didn't know how good it was until everything kind of fell apart and realized that we should have been diverting our focus to apartments. But anyway, so I was going around like 2010-ish, talking to everyone I could that was in the business, because back then it was still hard to get financing, even with apartment buildings. There was lots of distress, still a lot of blood in the streets. And so I was talking to apartment operators that were still in the business, that had weathered the storm, just to find out like what had changed. What were they doing? How is their business model different today than what it was prior to the crash? Like just to really get myself up to speed with how I was going to dive back in and what I was going to focus on. And as I was going through meeting these different people, I was introduced to a gentleman named Randy that had been in the mobile home park space, or manufactured housing is the prettier name for it, manufactured housing space for about 30 years from the banking side. And so he had funded, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of manufactured housing communities throughout the years as a banker, and had retired, I think about 7 years prior to our meeting. And when he retired, he literally started buying mobile home and RV parks, like in Florida here. Like that was, he knew it really well. He had underwritten them for years. And he had a lot of relationships with these mom and pop owners that had owned them for a long time. He literally just started buying them. And so I met with him, didn't even know what to expect out of this lunch meeting. But I can tell you within the first like hour of this like 2-hour lunch meeting, he had mentioned multiple things that just piqued my interest about that asset class that I had never really even thought of before. I mean, I knew what they were, but I just never really gave them the time of day. Mm-hmm. And I left that meeting saying I was so excited. And I was so interested that I left the meeting saying, I'm going to at least give it a year. I'm going to give it a year to see, what I can make happen, because this just seems like it's such a unique niche. It seems like the yields are significantly more when you compare it to apples of an apartment building. And it's just not as well known. And so there's not as much competition, and so that's really, there's multiple factors now that I'm deeper into it that I realize of why I still like it so much better than apartments is, number one, the turnover rate's not the same. I mean, to move a mobile home is very expensive. So your tenants that are in there, they own their homes most of the time. And so they can't just pack up their bags and throw their mattress on the rooftop and leave like they can in an apartment. So the turnover rate's not as easy, or it's not as high. But then on top of that, we look for mobile home parks that are in markets that aren't affordable to live in. So it's an affordable housing component, but we look for them in markets that aren't affordable. So we look at median house prices. We want to know that there's a demand for affordable housing. And so I know that if you can't afford to live in an A-class apartment building, then you move to a B-class. If you can't afford a B-class, you move to a C-class. If you can't afford a C-class, your option is basically a war zone D-class, right? I mean, rough area, pack a gun, don't carry any cash on you or else you get robbed. But that's still, in most markets around the country, you're still paying $500-$600 a month for that really low end apartment. Same mobile home park in that market, probably, but in a better area, would probably be half that in the lot rent. If you own the home, you'd probably be paying $300 or $350 a month. And so there's really, and it's a much safer area. It's a community aspect. And so there's really no cheaper place to live than in a mobile home community. It doesn't mean that it's really low end either. Like a lot of times, these are just good, hardworking people that just want to provide for their kids. And so in my mind, I looked at what just happened in the economy. And I knew that we weren't in any better shape in like 2010, 2011. I didn't really see things turning around really quickly. And so I thought, well, if someone can't afford to live in a mobile home park, right? So the whole like drip down or trickle down effect was happening. And if they can't afford to live in a mobile home park, they either live in a shelter underneath the bridge. Like there's no last option for them. And so I'm kind of like this basket saying, hey, I've got this beautiful option for you guys. It's affordable. You can own your own home. You don't have neighbors above, below, and beside you. And here you go. Like here it is. Live in this great community. Have a good school to send your kids to, and let it be affordable, less than what you'd be paying for that war zone apartment. So that's just one of the many reasons, but those are some of the big ones that really attract us to this space.
Yeah, totally understood. And what I keep finding, and I'm wondering if you can confirm or deny this, the more I talk to people who have done a lot more deals, because the same thing is happening for myself. We find these small little pockets of opportunity. While it's still real estate related, it becomes a specialized version of real estate that fits for us. And most everybody ends up leaving the single family house space, which I think is pretty bad to say, but it's also true. It's like, single family, I don't want any more of those. Let's go do this specialized thing. How often do you find that to be the case amongst the other real estate investors that that, they start way over here, to the single family house or something, but they end up at something more specialized that they double and triple down on, and that's kind of where they stay?
Yeah, I think that's the most common scenario. Is they get started in single family. And I think why, Jay, is because there's so much information readily available. I mean, go on iTunes right now. You and I have a podcast, but there's about 150 of them on fixing and flipping single family homes. I mean, there's HGTV shows, 5 a week probably on single family homes. I mean, like, it's all over the place. And there's a million books on Amazon on the topic. And, you watch cable TV, there's all these, boot camps and seminars that are being pitched. And so anyway, I think that it's in their face. And so, and it's also achievable for them in their mind. They're like, well, there's no way I could ever, like, they don't really think of it in the right manner of, $1 million mobile home park, $1 million apartment building, or a $50,000 home. Like, they don't set their expectations high enough. And they just think that, there's no way I'd ever be able to buy a property that large until I own a bunch of these other smaller ones, until I work my way up there. I need to work my way up to achieve or to purchase or acquire that large of a property. And I think it's just the wrong mindset. That's all. But I think that's what's fed to them by a lot of people that coach on investing in single family homes. And I think that until they get in and actually have some success, they learn the business. They're like, well, heck, I met so-and-so at the real estate investment club the other night. He owns a 80-unit apartment building. And I know that he only flipped, he had a couple of rentals before that, and he bought that thing. And he told me how he did it. And what am I wasting my time for over here? Right. I need to be doing bigger deals. So I think that a lot of people start in the single family game. And I think it's a good starting point. But I tell a lot of people, you just need to figure out what you think you have the most passion for. I mean, that's kind of hard when you're first getting started, you have no experience, but really dig deep into all don't put a brick wall up for yourself initially. Look at commercial real estate, look at multifamily, look at shopping centers. If you like shopping centers, office buildings, whatever you think might be your niche, self-storage, whatever it is, look at it, learn about it, develop whatever the passion is, and then just figure out how to do it.
You know why I originally wanted a shopping center, Kevin?
Why is that? Do I want to know the answer?
Yeah. It's kind of it's quirky. I wanted a shopping center originally because I wanted to have the keys on Black Friday.
Oh my gosh. I thought you were going to tell me you wanted your own Starbucks store or something like that.
No, I just wanted to have the keys on Black Friday so I could be first. That was the plan. That was it. It becomes this game after a while where it feels like you can go after any of these types of real estate. You've obviously decided on mobile home parks. That's the place to be. But I have a question because I get this in a number of forms and I want to hear your answer. So, the people ask me all the time, hey, okay, why, now that you've got what you've got, why do you still, cause you mentioned that you take on partners and capital and these things. Why do you still, if you have your own money, why are you still using other people's money? I know my answer, but I'm curious to hear what yours is.
There's multiple answers to that question.
I know.
One of them being I don't have enough of my own money to do all the deals that we have in the pipeline. So I mean, right now we've got 5 parks under contract. We need about $2 million, and I'm sure I could figure out a way to come up with them myself. But then I'd be completely tapped out for a long time, and so then the next couple deals that come along I wouldn't be able to do. And so I want the ability to do what comes in our pipeline as we're active investors, because we've got number one, we buy these parks. We have investors that we need to provide returns to. But that's kind of along the same lines of why we bring investors in, because I can't do them all myself. But also to offset the risk. I don't want to, not that we buy deals that we wouldn't put our own money into 100%, but there's something about offsetting the risk of not putting all your own dollars up and actually bringing partners in to split the risk with. So I mean, those are the two big components of it. But more so than not, I mean, we do own some of our own properties. Like my wife and I have some properties that we just own ourselves, and it's great because those provide us. I mean, for the size of them, they provide a lot to us because we get 100% of the proceeds. And whereas in our investment business, we've got to have a lot higher numbers, higher volume, more units under ownership and management, which is a it's just an infrastructure challenge sometimes, and it's just a growing business. But the only way for us to achieve that is by bringing passive investors in or money partners in to do it. So, that's the best two reasons that I have, Jay. What are your reasons? Is it the same thing, or do you have some different ones?
I have a couple of other ones. One being, it's the exact same. First of all, those first two are primary, but the other ones are, personally, this is a very, very personal thing. I would rather pay interest to investment partners than a bank, simply if I can, because the investment partner is going to, one, lower my marketing cost because he or she is always going to say something to the effect of, hey, guess what I just did, to their friend. I've never gotten a banker to go to another bank and say, hey, you should, they don't voluntarily send me more people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
I was like, that does not happen. And what it comes down to is really it's the mentality, in my opinion, is that you and I, or anyone out there who is an entrepreneur of any kind, especially inside the real estate world, we can solve a problem for people. They have a problem being, fighting inflation, yield, monetary policy, all these types of things. You're actually a solution for that, Kevin. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but you're a significant solution as an alternative to the things that they traditionally have available. And that means something to me.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess there's two different angles you could look at. Like one's from like the business angle, like why do you do it from the business perspective? But then also
Sure.
the more personalized angle, which is I'm helping people that don't know what to do with their money. Like they've got their money tied up in CDs or just crappy money market accounts or wherever, and literally they're getting 1% on their dollar, if they're lucky. And so I'm going to show them a better way, a much better way, a much more secure way. And so from a personal perspective, absolutely. When we take money in, our first objective is our investors. Like that's all we think about until they get their money back, until they're getting the returns that we projected for them. That's our focus. And so, they're our number one priority. And I enjoy that. I enjoy helping people. And I actually love the response we get from the investors that we work with when we just exceed their expectations. They're like, oh my gosh, like I never ever expected that I'd be able to get 12 or 13 or 14% on my money. Like that's just unheard of. And the funny thing is, like when you do that, you're right, the word spreads. They're out golfing with their buddies and they're bragging. Everyone wants to brag about how well their money's working for them, right?
Right.
If most of our investors actually come from referrals from others.
Right.
That's probably the largest source of investors for us are just referrals from friends that probably bragged at a dinner or a golf match or whatever it is about how well their money's doing and how they got the secret, which is Jay or Kevin. Go talk to these guys.
Yep. You got to talk to my guy. That's what I call it. It's the my guy.
Yep. My guy.
You got to talk to my guy. Everybody wants to have a my guy. By the way, you know what CDs really are, right?
What's that?
Certificates of depression.
Oh boy. Yeah. Yep. You're right, man. That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to use that.
Knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. Now, I have this feeling you and I can talk for a very long time. So, I know that there's a number of people who have listened this far and they want to know more about what you guys got going on. So what's going to be the best way for them to track you down and reach out to you guys?
Yeah, so two different ways. The first one is just my personal website, kevinbupp.com. You can learn about me on there as an individual, as an investor, my background. Also on that website is pretty much every episode from the Real Estate Investing for Cashflow show that I do, which will, again, tell you a lot about me and my background. We talk about everything and anything commercial real estate investing there. But then more specifically, if you have an interest in mobile home park investing, the website there, which I can also be reached through that website, that one is mobilehomeparkacademy.com. And you can listen to the podcast on that website. You can learn about our academy, offer some training programs and such. And if you just want to reach out to me personally, I'm not like one of these secret gurus that are impossible to contact. I am busy, but my personal email address is kevin@kevinbupp.com. And sometimes it might take me a few days to get back with you, but if you have questions or anything like that, just reach out to me or reach me through the website. And I think you can find everything that you need to find out between those three methods.
I know, right? I know. So, all right. So I've got a final question here for you. And let's pretend for a moment that someone listening is standing in front of what I would call the superhero outfit store, Kevin. They're ready to do this real estate thing or begin their journey as an entrepreneur in any endeavor. So they're thinking about picking out their cape and tights. They're going to make this thing happen. Now, You know, like I know, that when we make those decisions of what we're going to go and that are great and become, at the same time, they're dealing with right now that voice that comes up. It's that voice that always reminds us of what we're not, who we're not, why we're not, what our teacher said that we're not. And for some people, they're actually related to that person who's telling them that they're not. And my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend for a moment that they're actually going to follow through on what you suggest. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
And this is assuming that they want to learn about mobile home park investing or just real estate investing in general.
They want to start their journey to cash flow. If they're choosing mobile homes or real estate, whatever, they're just trying to get that overcome inertia and get started.
Yeah, 24 or 40 hours. I mean, I think the first thing you need to do is really try to sit down and map out like a blueprint or a game plan. And here's the thing. Going into it, like, you got that voice. You got these people in your lives that are telling you that it's going to be challenging. You shouldn't do it. Just get a job. Stay at your job. Do what's right for your family. And that's to have that monthly check coming in from, working at, I don't know, Sears or whatever, Kmart, wherever it is you work. But know that those voices are going to be in your head. But go into it knowing that they're going to be there. There's going to be the negative Nancys of the world. There's going to be people that they're loved ones, but maybe it's not they don't want you to succeed, but they don't understand it, and what they don't understand scares them. Know that those voices are going to be there, and here's the best thing that works for me. Here's what the advice I give is that set yourself like a deadline. Like, give yourself a lot of amount of time. And I say a year. A year is a good amount of time. It's a long time. It's long enough. It's not too long. It's not too short. Give yourself a year and just tell yourself that for this entire year, 365 days, I'm literally just going to ignore those voices and know that they're going to bring me down. I'm going to have tougher days than others. And this is going to be a really challenging struggle. I'm going to hit roadblocks, but I'm going to do everything in my power to push through and to become successful as a real estate investor. And I'm just going to ignore it. And after that year, I'll look back and say, did I make any progress? But I can promise you, if you ignore all those negative Nancys and all those people like talking down and derogatory comments about what you're trying to achieve, if you ignore them for a year and you just focus on learning and educating yourself and surrounding yourself by others that are out there doing it, go to your local real estate investment clubs, listen to Jay's podcast, listen to my podcast, listen to all the other free information that's out there on iTunes or on YouTube, whatever it might be. I really think that most people that actually take the time to do that and focus will make it in this business. And so for the first 24, 48 hours, you just need to really set that game plan of what that next 365 days is going to look like. But also in addition to that, try to at least get an idea of what you think you're going to focus in. Like, spend a lot of time, because I feel like that's where people waste a lot of time. They're literally chasing that shiny object, Jay. I mean, they're literally a year goes past and they're like, wow, I bought these 9 programs and attend these 4 boot camps, and they're all on different topics. One's lease options, one's wholesaling, one's apartment buildings, the other one's self-storage. And they're like, I got all these books and manuals at home. My wife's now really pissed at me because I just spent $40,000 on all this stuff and I still haven't done a deal yet. Well, try to figure out what you think you might have an interest in that first 24 to 48 hours. And just stick with it. Like, I work really well, Jay, with focusing on one thing. That's why, like, today we buy mobile home parks. Before we had apartment buildings, before we had single family homes. Like, we're always like focusing on one particular thing and just becoming the best at it. And I'm not saying that's the best way for everybody, but that works for me. And so when you're getting started, I think it's easier just to focus on one thing and just know that there's 1,000 different ways to make money in real estate. You just got to pick one and know that every single one of those 1,000 are going to be all tough in their own way. Just pick one. And ignore all the other people at the clubs as well that say, hey, you need to make money this way. You need to make money that way. Just pick your one way and focus on it. And try to pick that one way in that first 24 or 48 hours. That way you've got the other 363 days of the year to focus on how you're going to make money doing it.
Indeed.
So that's what I'd have to say.
I love it. I love it a lot. And I just want to say I appreciate the bumps, the bruises, the fact that you're willing to share them, and most importantly, you taking the time to share your knowledge, insight, and wisdom here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Jay, thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate it and had a lot of fun spending time with your guest.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to kevinbupp.com. Why? Because you know that you were intrigued by the idea of mobile home parks. You know that you heard something that, like, man, I feel like I can do this too. If maybe you are that person that was also right next to him in the detention center or being suspended or near suspended in school, and you're like, oh, there's still something out there for me. Yes, absolutely. You know, you just need a game plan and focus. And Nancy, if you're listening, I know you're not always negative. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Until next time.